Building chairs always seemed really scary to me. There's just so many more factors that you have to keep in mind as opposed to any other type of furniture. But I like a challenge, so I decided to woman up and design a chair. Spoiler alert, I think I made it work. Keep watching to see how it came together. This video is sponsored by my friends at Kreg Tool. I guess one challenge wasn't enough because I decided early on I wanted to make this entire chair out of just 3 48-inch stair treads. Stair treads are pre-milled, so they're nice and flat and straight, and they're readily accessible. Stair treads are a good option if you want 4/4 material but don't want to go through the hassle of milling your own lumber. My design called for a few different types of cuts, so I figured this would be the perfect project to try my new adaptive cutting system from Kreg. So the ACS is a whole new system. It includes a plunge saw, a track, a whole bunch of guides, and everything that you would ever need to make complex cuts, all on this awesome project table. I was able to make every single cut for this chair exclusively on my ACS. If you don't have the adaptive cutting system, don't worry. Most of these cuts could be made either with a table saw or a circular saw as well. Stair treads come in standard 11.5-inch widths. I had a couple of panels that needed to be wider than that, so my first job was to laminate 2 of the stair treads together. I used the track and plunge saw to give me 2 straight edges that would be ready for glue up. No jointer needed. I then used my beadlock system from Rockler to drill the mortises that would accommodate floating tenons. You guys have probably seen me use the beadlock on previous build projects. It helps with alignment and really reinforces the joint, but honestly, it's not entirely necessary for this type of project. I could have just glued the 2 panels together. When I had the 2 stair treads and clamps, I realized I probably should have ripped off the round over bowl nose before trying to clamp them. Luckily, I was still able to get enough pressure and got a nice tight seam. Once the panel was dry, I started to cut down my individual components. The adaptive cutting system lockable track guides made repeated cuts really easy, kind of like a table saw. If you have a question about the Kreg Adaptive cutting system, make sure to leave a comment. Those little blue things are called Versa stops. They made it easy to keep my material nice and square. I needed to make a bevel cut on the back of the chair so it would recline slightly and make it more comfortable. I've had less than great bevel cuts when ripping material before, so I was a little apprehensive. I think the ability of the saw to hug onto the track really helped, and I was able to get a nice even bevel the entire length. For material greater than 24 inches, the ACS also has this little extension guide. I've published a blog post on my website with a free building plan so you can get the exact measurements and diagrams when you're ready to build your own chair. Next, I moved on to the legs, which I decided should have a 10-degree splay or angle that they sit at. I set the angle gauge and then made repeated cuts, creating 4 identical leg pieces. Since the joinery could be hidden, I decided to use pocket holes to connect the leg assembly pieces together. I designed the legs of the chair to be assembled together and come up over the bottom of the seat and up onto the sides. If this is the first Pneumatic Attic video you've seen, welcome! You guys are the reason why I keep challenging myself and trying new projects. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you never miss anything new. I wanted to create a horizontal support to hold the seat in place, so on the inside of the legs, I created 16-inch inner supports. I attached them to the legs using glue and a few 1.5-inch 18-gauge brads. Inspired by the rounded bull nose of the stair treads, I wanted to give a full radius roundover to the chair's edges. I discovered right away that my 1/2-inch roundover bit wouldn't fit on the plate of my current trim router. I toyed around with a few ideas, and then I ended up cannibalizing an old circle jig that I used for my candy machine video. I widened the opening, rounded the edges, and made a makeshift plate. I took multiple shallow passes to help avoid chip out and burning. Unfortunately, there were a couple of spots in the corners where the pieces came together that I couldn't get to with the router. I removed the bulk of the material with a chisel and then used a finish sander to help round it out. I was actually surprised, but I was able to get the profiles to line up pretty well. I discovered on this project, anything with curved shapes is going to involve lots of hand sanding. I then moved on to the seat portion of the chair. I was originally going to use my bead lock to join the pieces together, but after a couple of failed attempts, I decided to go with dowels instead. While I was building, I shared this little tip on my Instagram. Using a pencil sharpener, especially the wider kind that you get in the makeup pencil sharpeners, will add a slight chamfer and make inserting dowels much easier. P.S. There's a link to my Instagram account in the description box if you're not following me there already. It took a little persuasion, but I was able to join the seat sides to the back rail. To help keep the joint square, I laid the seat bottom in place during clamping. I didn't glue it or attach it, it was just there for alignment. The seat bottom was another place where my joinery could be concealed, so I decided to use pocket holes to attach it as well. I applied a healthy amount of glue and then pressed the seat bottom into the seat assembly. I used clamps to help hold it in place and then drove 1 1/2 inch pocket hole screws to hold everything together. Before attaching the back, I used my router to round over all the edges of the seat assembly, as well as the seat back itself. I inserted the seat back between the sides and made sure it was sitting flush on that 15-degree angle I had cut on the bottom edge. I measured from the front edge of the seat and then transferred that distance on the bottom side of the seat assembly. I marked where my screw location should be and then pre-drilled. I then applied glue to that bottom edge and replaced the seat back. Reaching up from the bottom side, I pre-drilled again into the seat back and then connected the pieces together using 2-inch screws. At this point, the seat assembly was done and I needed to turn my attention back to the legs. I cut two 2-inch by 20-inch stretchers and drilled pocket holes on both ends. I used clamps to hold the seat assembly to the legs, and then I applied glue to the rails. I used some Kreg right angle clamps to help hold them in place, while I drove the screws through the pocket holes, securing the whole assembly together. The last step was to secure the side portion of the legs to the seat. I measured to find the center of the leg, and then transferred that measurement to the inside of the seat side pieces. I countersunk a 3/8 inch hole and then pre-drilled through the seat and into the legs. I then connected the pieces using 1 1/4 inch screws. To hide the screw heads, I plugged the holes using 3/8 inch wood plugs. Once the glue was dry, I could sand them flush. At this point, I spent some quality time with the chair, giving everything a really good hand sanding. With pine, my first instinct is to stain it, but I really wanted to keep the light natural color. To help with this, I first sprayed 1 coat of water-based polyacrylic. Water-based finishes don't yellow wood like oil-based do, but they do raise the grain, so that means after the first coat, more hand sanding. Here's another little trick if you really want to neutralize any yellow or gold tones in your wood. I added a few drops of a light purple acrylic paint to my top 2 coats of my polyacrylic. It's very subtle, but the purple helps neutralize any yellow that will shine through. I picked up a pre-made seat cushion that fit the bottom perfectly. I'll leave a link in the description for the one that I used. Ready to see the big scary chair? I'm so happy with my decision to do the roundovers. I love the look and, most importantly, the feel of all the edges. And as for the tricky stuff, I'm happy to say the chair is perfectly balanced and the back is really comfortable. I guess there was really nothing to be scared of. If you like this build, then you'll probably like this video, and maybe this one too. Give this video a thumbs up, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, guys!